The Wa people. When it comes to the most mysterious tribes in China, few can rival the Wa people of Wangding village in Yunnan. National Geographic once called this place the last primitive tribe of the country, and after seeing what they have preserved for over 400 years, you'll understand why that description is anything but an exaggeration. In the Wa language, Wangding means the place of clouds and mist. This is no poetic flourish each morning. The fog here is so thick it spills over thatched rooftops, seeps into bamboo walls, and turns the entire village into a living ink wash painting, tucked deep inside the Nongonshin National Nature Reserve near the Myanmar border. The air is so pure that every breath feels strangely invigorating. There is one aspect of life here that may force you to rethink conventional standards of beauty. While we chase after pearly white teeth, but women regard jet black smiles as the height of allure. They use herbs to dye their teeth black, not only to protect them from decay, but also to assert their identity a clear boundary separating humans from wild beasts of the deep forest. Imagine encountering a people whose definition of beauty is the complete opposite of everything you were taught. The houses here are still built entirely from bamboo and wood, with thatched roofs. Homes passed down through the same family line for generations. But most striking of all is the vivid red of their clothing. This color is not merely fashion, it is a memory of an era when the Iwa were known as guardians of souls. Long ago, the village practiced mysterious, sacrificial rituals to pray for peace, turning this place into a land once considered impenetrable to outsiders. What truly forms the soul of the Wa people is the wooden drum dance. To them, it is not entertainment. The drumbeat is the voice of their ancestors, the heartbeat of the earth, and the thread connecting present and past. For this very reason, the government has placed both the village and this dance on the list of cultural heritage in urgent need of protection. Today, around 300,000 Buyi people still maintain a self-sufficient way of life. They grow rice and corn, raise livestock, and hunt just as their ancestors did centuries ago, despite harsh natural conditions. They choose to live in harmony with nature, worshiping the land, the sky, trees, and animals. Their festivals are not merely for celebration, but profound spiritual rituals honoring the bond between humans and the natural world. Hongding is not just a village, it is a living museum where culture, language, and art continue to be passed down intact, undisturbed by the flow of time. The Mosuo Tribe. If you think marriage and family are unchanging concepts, the Mosuo people of Lugu Lake in Yunnan will completely overturn that belief. For more than 1,000 years, they have maintained a way of life in which conventional ideas about obligation, commitment, and child-rearing are turned upside down. What fascinates the world most about the Mosuo is their practice of walking marriage. There are no lavish weddings, no legal contracts, and absolutely no moving in together. When two people develop feelings for each other, the woman invites the man to visit her at night. At dawn, he must quietly leave before the household awakens. The relationship is entirely private, voluntary, and carries no binding responsibilities. Every Mosuo girl, upon reaching adulthood, is given her own bedroom known as the flower room when night falls. The man slips in, usually climbing through the window rather than entering through the front door, and disappears again before sunrise. It may sound permissive, but in reality, this system is built on absolute trust. It frees love from social and financial pressures. People come together simply because they want to, and they part ways when feelings fade. Nothing more complicated than that. Perhaps the most controversial aspect is child rearing. If a child is born, he or she is raised entirely within the mother's family. The biological father does not move in, is not required to provide financial support, and bears no obligation to raise the child. Instead, maternal uncles. The mother's brothers take on the roles of caregivers and mentors. There is no concept of divorce or property disputes, because there are no legal bonds to begin with. The heart of every Mosuo household is the hearth, where a fire is kept burning day and night to honor the ancestors. Around this fire, all major and minor family decisions are made by women. Men, meanwhile, typically handle physically demanding tasks such as hunting, butchering, and storing food for the harsh winter. Tourists often arrive with fantasies of a free love paradise. But this is a serious insult to Mosuo culture. The Mosuo are struggling to protect the sanctity of the flower room from commercialization and crude curiosity. What may seem like a loose system is, in fact, an extremely resilient social structure that has endured for millennia. For men accustomed to patriarchal thinking, life here can be challenging. Children do not carry the father's surname. Men have no decision-making power within the household, and love comes with no guarantee of permanence. But that is precisely the point the Mosuo build their society, on autonomy rather than ownership. They have shown the world that a family does not need to follow a single model in order to survive and thrive over centuries. Enjoying this so far? Drop a like, and hit the hype button if you're on your phone. When this reaches 300 likes, I'll take you to one of the most remote tribes on Earth, a place few people even know exists. The Reindeer Tribe. Deep within the ancient forests of Inner Mongolia lies a story that is at once heartbreakingly beautiful and profoundly tragic. It is the story of the Ewenki people, the last remaining reindeer-herding tribe in China. They are living proof of how closely humans can coexist with nature, yet also a tragedy of a culture forced to abandon the very soul of its existence. For the Ewenki, reindeer are family, companions, and their entire world. Their conical dwellings, known as kuo luosi, along with their clothing, footwear, hats, and even sleeping mats, are all made from reindeer hide. Their lives revolve entirely around the steady footsteps of these proud animals. In the local language, Ewenki means people who live in the mountains and forests. Their reverence for reindeer runs so deep that killing one is considered a sin. Instead, they drink reindeer milk, or rich. Creamy milk often mixed into afternoon tea. Perhaps the most beautiful sight is at dusk. When the Ewenki whistle through the forest, each reindeer recognizes the unique melody of its owner and finds its way home. This bond is so strong that it follows them even into death through the practice of sky burial. Rather than burying the deceased beneath cold earth, they place their loved ones on wooden platforms high in the forest. They believe that suspended between heaven and earth, the soul can more easily soar to the afterlife, continuing its eternal journey alongside the legendary reindeer. Yet the reality today is brutally harsh. Only about 30 people remain who still belong to the last generation maintaining the traditional way of life. The true tragedy is not simply leaving the forest, but what the locals call the loss of the soul. In the past, the hunting rifle was an inseparable companion, an emblem of strength and pride for Ewenki men in the vast wilderness. When government regulations required them to lay down their guns in the name of environmental conservation, these forest warriors suddenly became strangers in their own homeland. Stripped of their purpose, many turned to alcohol as a way to escape reality. This constant drunkenness is, in truth, the silent cry of a hunting culture on the brink of extinction. In 2022, the passing of Maria Suo, revered as the last female chieftain, who steadfastly refused to leave the mountains, marked the end of a glorious era. Today, the remaining reindeer seem to exist more for tourist cameras than for survival itself. A heroic culture is gradually being reduced to memories preserved for film and spectacle. The story of the Ewenki leaves us with a painful question sometimes. In trying to protect the environment, we inadvertently suffocate the very cultures that have lived in harmony with it for thousands of years. The Tuva Tribe. If you still think skiing is a specialty that originated in Europe, you may need to rethink that belief after hearing this story. Amid the majestic mountains of northern Xinjiang, the Tuva people hold a secret that has left Western archaeologists astonished. They may in fact have been the first people in the world to ski. Hemu is the northernmost village in China, and one of only 3 rare places where the Tuva still live. Cave murals in the Altai region show that tens of thousands of years ago, while the rest of the world was still trudging through snow on foot, the ancestors of the Tuva were already gliding across ice on wooden boards wrapped in horsehide. This ancient history completely predates and surpasses the European records of skiing that we commonly read about in textbooks. Beyond mastering speed, the Tuva also possess a musical superpower known as throat singing. With a single throat, a Tuva man can produce 2 sounds at the same time, a deep, rumbling tone like the voice of the earth, and a piercing, high note like wind whistling through mountain passes. For them, this is not a stage performance, but a way of communicating with the spirits of nature. Listening to their singing, you may feel as though you are reconnecting with an ancient source of energy that modern humans have long forgotten. Hemu village lies tucked deep within a valley, where wooden houses stand close together, all main doors traditionally facing east. Surrounding the village are breathtaking birch forests, lush green in summer, glowing golden like honey in autumn, and in winter, blanketed in snow. The birch trees resemble gigantic white snow mushrooms. Living in a place where winter temperatures can drop below -22 degrees Fahrenheit, the Tuva have developed remarkably intelligent ways to adapt. Their homes are built of wood and stone, with roofs covered in birch bark for waterproofing. Most notably, half of each house is often built underground to retain heat, an ingenious survival architecture that allows them to live comfortably while the cold outside can be deadly. Nearby lies Canis Lake, shrouded in legends of a monster lurking beneath its waters. These stories are not merely tourist attractions. They bind the Tuva people to a land filled with spirituality and mystery. Today, only about 2,000 Tuva people remain in China. For the past 400 years, they have survived through hunting and herding, sustaining themselves on a high-energy diet of beef, mutton, and dairy to withstand the cold. But like many indigenous groups, the Tuva now stand at a crossroads. How can they preserve their identity as the forces of modernization sweep into every corner of their village? The story of the Tuva is powerful proof that primitive doesn't mean backward. Sometimes, humanity's greatest innovations come from those who have learned to live most harmoniously with the harshness of nature. The Buyi People, tucked deep in the mountains of Guizhou. There is a community that international media have called the last cave tribe in Asia. The Buyi people of Zhongdong Cave have turned a place most of us would think is unlivable into a true, multi-generational home without relying on the comforts of the modern world. About 80 people from 18 families live together beneath the massive stone ceiling of a single cave. For generations, they chose to live completely cut off from the outside. In fact, it wasn't until the 1990s that the rest of the world even realized they were there. The Buyi are one of China's oldest ethnic groups, with a history stretching back more than 2,000 years. While the modern world rushed to build skyscrapers and smart cities, they quietly continued having children, growing crops, and growing old beneath the same limestone roof that had sheltered their ancestors for centuries. Inside the cave, life is simple but deeply human. Each family marks off its own space with bamboo or wooden partitions, forming a village within the cave, private yet closely connected. Cooking, raising livestock, and caring for children all happen in a natural rhythm. Without architects, blueprints, or urban planners, that peaceful life changed once fame arrived. Imagine your most private moments: eating a modest meal, taking a nap, being watched every day by crowds of strangers and camera lenses. Overnight, the cave's residents went from homeowners to unwilling performers, forced to put their everyday lives on display for tourists. The government built rows of modern concrete houses at the foot of the mountain and encouraged the families to move down. Many people were shocked by their response. They refused. To the Buyi, life in the cave may be poor, but it is cool, free, and deeply connected to nature. They would rather stay in a poor cave than live inside hot concrete buildings where they feel cut off from the natural world. This quiet resistance is really a struggle between cultural dignity and the pressure of modern life. Of course, isolation comes at a cost. Education for children, access to healthcare, and transportation are all serious challenges. The real question is, how can their lives be improved without erasing who they are? How can they be protected from becoming a tourist attraction in their own home? The Buyi people of Zhongdong Cave are a powerful reminder that happiness doesn't always come from comfort or convenience. Sometimes, a solid stone roof and a tightly bonded community are worth more than all the modern houses in the world. The Jing People. This final story may completely change how you think about preserving cultural identity. Right in the middle of the bustling city of Dongxing, surrounded by skyscrapers and modern life, there is a Vietnamese community that has quietly kept the language and traditions of their ancestors alive for more than 500 years on Chinese soil. They are the Jing people of the fishing villages known as Three Islands. What truly earns respect is this: after dozens of generations, the Jing people here still speak Vietnamese in their daily lives. Their children even study from textbooks written in their mother tongue. This isn't the result of a government program. It's a conscious, determined choice made by a community over half a millennium. According to family records, around the 16th century, a group of Vietnamese fishermen left their homeland and settled on these three small islands to make a living from the sea. At that time, the modern Vietnamese alphabet didn't yet exist, so all their documents and family records were written in Chu Nom, a script so complex that even many Vietnamese people today struggle to read it. More than 500 years later, what began as a small fishing group has grown into a community of nearly 20,000 people of Vietnamese descent. Now in their 9th and 10th generations, though geographically far from their ancestral homeland, their cultural roots have never been broken. For the Jing people here, Vietnamese is more than just a language. It's the thread that ties generations together through folk songs and lullabies. Children grow up speaking Vietnamese at home and Chinese in the wider society, becoming living bridges between two cultures. They still celebrate Lunar New Year with chung cake, 5 fruit trays, ancestor worship, and red envelopes. Most important of all is the 6th day of the 6th lunar month, the biggest festival for fishermen when rituals are held to pray for calm seas and boats heavy with fish and shrimp. And don't let the word fishing village fool you. Today, the Jing people of 3 islands are among the wealthiest and most dynamic communities along the border, with sharp business instincts. They transformed what was once a poor coastal village into neighborhoods filled with villas and thriving enterprises. They are not only skilled fishermen who understand the sea and fish migration patterns, but also savvy traders who have built sophisticated commercial networks connecting Chinese markets with goods from Vietnam. In many ways, they are the economic backbone of the region. Yet, no matter how successful they become, there is one thing they refuse to give up: the sound of the dan bao, Vietnam's traditional one-string instrument. A saying passed down here goes, "We may live by the sea and be buried on the hills, but our souls must always return to the sound of the dan bao." Amid the rush of modern China, that lone, haunting melody still echoes, like cultural DNA that cannot be diluted. Affirming their roots across time and distance, the Jing people of Dongxing are powerful proof that economic success does not have to come at the cost of cultural identity. They show us that it's possible to move boldly into the future without leaving the soul of a people behind. After exploring these 6 extraordinary communities, one truth becomes crystal clear. These aren't primitive tribes struggling to survive in a modern world. These are sophisticated societies that have made conscious choices about how to live, what to preserve, and what to adapt. What these communities share isn't primitiveness. It's intentionality. They've each made deliberate decisions about which aspects of modernity to embrace and which traditional practices to preserve. They represent different answers to the same fundamental question: how do we live meaningful lives in harmony with our values, our environment, and our community? Their stories remind us that there's no single path to human flourishing, that primitive and advanced are often matters of perspective, and that the oldest ways of living sometimes offer the newest insights into age-old human challenges. The next time you hear about primitive tribes, remember these communities. They're not relics of the past struggling to survive. They're living laboratories of human possibility, showing us different ways to answer the most fundamental questions about how we should live together on this planet. What surprised you most about these tribes? Did any of their practices challenge your assumptions about family, beauty, or success? Share in the comments which community you'd most like to visit and why. I read every comment and love hearing your perspectives on these incredible cultures. If you found these stories as fascinating as I did, make sure you're subscribed, because next week I'm exploring the hidden communities where tribes have developed technologies that are now being studied by modern scientists. You won't want to miss those revelations.